is. Okay, gotcha.
Are we ready?
We are ready.
3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Sievert. I am the newly appointed chairman of the Finance Committee for the City of Troy. To my right is William Roselle. To my left is Bobby Phillips. We are here today to talk about several items, actually. The first is to provide a recommendation to council regarding the loan review committee, regarding the recommendation of the loan review committee to approve a loan for the Small Business Development Revolving Loan Fund of $141,000 to Allen Financial Group LLC to assist with improvements to 80 South Plum Street. Consideration of emergency legislation has been requested. So I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Titterton at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The total project is approximately $746,000. There is some bank financing as well as equity involved, and the small business development loan request is $141,000 plus closing fees. The loan repayment term would be 114 months divided by 12, and you do the math because I didn't do it beforehand. 2.5% interest, 6 months of interest-only payments, which is why it's 114 months and not 120, which would make it a 10-year loan. I did that in my head. I just want to get noted. The collateral would be the second position lien on the building, as well as personal guarantee of the owner if there's any kind of gap in between the value and the outstanding loan. If the stated repairs are not completed, the city will have the opportunity to recall the loan. We are, as you mentioned, asking for emergency legislation, much as we do with every small business and CDBG loan that we do, so that there can be a closing at the earliest possible time.
I have one question. The amortization schedule, the notes, and everything else have a interest rate of 2.75. Is that a typo, or did we?
It should be a typo because the calculation will be based on 2.5.
Correct. The information, what was put in your packet, was what the loan review committee saw. At that time, we were proposing a 2.75%. That's why the breakdown is a little different. When we do the loan closing at 2.5%, he'll receive a new and official one. But this was amendment made by the loan review committee to be 2.5%.
So in other words, when it went to the committee, Todd, it was recommended at 2.75. After discussion, going back to when the initial request had been made, the committee agreed unanimously that the rate should be 2.5, not 2.75.
And I recall.
So our amortization schedule when we close will be based on the 2.5%.
Which is different than what's in our packet.
Correct, because
Okay.
the packet that you see standard is what is submitted to the committee.
Right. And I recall this from last year, but is there a standard rate, or is that still arbitrary determination between?
You, in the next month or so, will get a new set of guidelines on the small business loan program that updates all the parameters, including the standardization of a rate. And we talked to Mr. Frigge about this rate, which is why the initial recommendation from the staff was 2.75. And so in the future, based on the, not the CPI, but the Federal Reserve rate would be 2.75. You will be getting that to approve at a later date in the next month or so.
So again, then this is just an arbitrary negotiated rate that we came up with?
I wouldn't, the word arbitrary, no, it's a rate that was more relevant 6 to 9 months ago when we were in initial discussions with this, as well as another one that is in your packet.
Was it 2.5? I'm sorry.
So it's increased to 275
It's
going forward?
Yes, it's increasing.
Going to increase to 2.75.
Or what, it's going to peg against the federal rate, which currently would be the 2.75. That could go up, but it will be pegged to that rate, so it will not be arbitrary, it'll be based.
So consistently, we'll have a rate
Yes.
that people aren't saying, how come I'm paying X and somebody else is paying Y?
Correct. And
Okay.
if there is any recommended alteration or, wandering from that rate, then we will present
Facts Y.
reasons why we might want to consider something different, but our standard will be a standard.
But for this particular one, we're at
This is-
less than
this is
20%
cleaning up some
of,
older ones that have
Yeah.
been going through the process for several months.
right, okay. Mr. Rozell, anything you wish to add to the discussion? Mr. Phillips, anything you wish to add?
Well, just a clarification in talking about the interest rate, that the 2.5 does reflect what we have done primarily in the past, along that line.
It's
Yes.
it's in the ballpark,
Right.
yes.
Okay, got it.
It's
Okay.
actually, I think, higher, a little higher than some of the ones that we've done in the last year.
Yeah, it was between 2 and 2.5.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay.
Well,
got it.
some are at 4, some are at 3.
Well,
I
those
mean,
are
they're all
old.
over.
Those are
We
old.
haven't recommended one, last year we didn't recommend any that were 4.
No, I understand.
Okay.
But I just meant consistently, so once we tie it to this rate, going forward, we won't have these differing values or differing rates going forward, absent some sort of rational reason.
Oh, well, right, correct.
That's all I have, thank you.
Any other members of council? Ms. Whitting, Ms. Marshall, my eyes are bad, I can't say, Ms. Snee, I think that's you in the back. Sam Pierce, Mr. Pierce, sorry, Samuel, it was at the tip of my tongue. Mr. Pierce, do you have any questions?
Not this time.
Anyone in the audience have anything they wish to bring to council on this issue? Okay. Mr. Phillips, what's your choice?
Proceed as staff is recommending.
Mr. Rozell?
Same.
I think we'll have a unanimous recommendation to proceed. Moving on. Our next one is to provide a recommendation of council regarding the recommendation of the Loan Review Committee to approve a modification of the previously approved loan for the Small Business Development Grant Revolving Loan Fund to 107 West Main Street LLC to extend the repayment terms from 3 to 20 years to assist with the renovations and second floor of the property of the 107 West Main Street. Consideration of emergency legislation is requested. That's the Masonic Lodge
This is the
building?
Masonic Temple.
Okay.
Lodge. And it was initially approved as a 3-year loan with the idea that probably closer to 3 years from now, they would be asking for to be converted to a longer-term loan. The idea being that they felt like it was going to take some time to lease out the first floor and then figure out what they want to do and how quickly they want to do it with regards to the second, at the upper floors. They have rented out the first floor a lot quicker than they thought. And so the owner came back to us and said that he'd like to convert that to a longer-term loan. Same terms, but just same other terms, just changing the number of years from 3 to 20. And the Loan Review Committee agreed with that, appreciated the speed with which he's been able to renovate that structure and will continue to do so, and unanimously recommended that the council approve.
And on this one, just to clarify, I guess with Tim, the total project cost is $2 million. This is a loan principal of only $100,000 against collateral of $2 million. And it looks like we're going to be a first position?
That is correct.
Okay. So do we do we take that into consideration in establishing a rate, that we're in a better position at first versus second?
Historically, we have taken that into consideration, but our rates are usually in the same ballpark area. And as Patrick explained earlier, we get something that's more concrete with consistent rates here in the next month or so.
Okay. So, but I mean, yeah, we should be very well secured if that's the value of the building and it's 100, so. Mr. Rozell, anything you wish to add to that?
And he's just doing this because he's ahead of schedule and
Yeah,
Basically.
he's restructured his.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
They're doing a great job.
And we are asking for emergency legislation since there is a closing involved in this.
Mr. Phillips, anything?
No, proceed as staff is recommending here.
I will ask any members of council, starting with my friend to my left, Mr. Pierce. Is there anything you wish to add?
not this time.
Ms. Marshall, Mr. Whitten, Ms. Snee, I think that's all the members of council. Anybody in the audience have anything they wish to add to this? Outside of where they put up the Mumford and Son banners again, which I hear all the time in the community.
They
So
have that scheduled
It's
for
painting.
March.
It's painting.
they do have I know it's yeah. They do have that scheduled for March?
They are coming back
Oh,
in.
good.
Yeah, they are.
Well, that's good to know. Anyone else have anything on this particular item? Mr. Rozell, how do you wish to proceed?
Move forward with
Mr.
emergency.
Phillips?
Please move forward.
Ms. Knight, it'll be unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee that we move forward on the 107 West Main Street LLC loan.
Thank you.
Next, we will provide a recommendation to council regarding the recommendation of the Loan Review Committee to approve a loan from the CDBG Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund of $300,000 to Kimberly Frazier on behalf of Speak Easy Ramen LLC. Loan is to finance the purchase of restaurant equipment for a new restaurant at 101 West Main Street. Consideration of an emergency legislation is requested. And again, I think this is the restaurant going into the Mason Building, and I will turn the floor over to Mr. Titterton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is another revolving loan. However, it is out of the CDBG pot of funds. Those monies have more restrictions on them, prevailing wage, other federal guidelines that come into play. And so we use them for selective types of projects. This project, which, yes, would help finance the establishment of a new restaurant in the southeast corner of the first floor, right? Southeast, yes. Should I give you a moment?
No.
Okay. The total project is estimated at $647,000. And so CDBG funds, again, we try to be selective with those, and since the purchase of a substantial amount of restaurant equipment is involved, that is an easy one to have this fund finance. They are asking for $300,000 of the $647,000. The term would be 84 months, 2% interest. It was 6 months of interest-only payments. They would have adequate collateral. And as I mentioned earlier, there would be some language to recall the loan if the equipment is not purchased, so that we do have a clawback provision. And as you mentioned, as this is a loan with a closing, we do ask for emergency legislation.
Does anyone have anything further? Right, do we not do personal guarantees on CDBG money?
We can, we don't have to. Sometimes we do.
Because you think the
We really
UC
work with each of the.
You think the UCCs will just be sufficient to
We think that
cover?
would be more than
Yeah,
sufficient.
so we're doing it on equipment only, and so each piece of equipment that they purchase, they're doing it on equipment only, which is what we are funding. And so we will have a UCC lien on each piece of equipment that they purchase, and because it's going to the purchase of equipment, they can't purchase anything other than that. So we would be 100% covered.
Covered with, through the restaurant equipment?
Correct, and that's why we are not requesting a personal
Personal
guarantee.
guarantee. Well, looking forward to them coming. So, Mr. Rozell, anything you wish to add?
Nope.
Mr. Phillips?
I have no questions at this time.
I will now start with Mr. Whitten, since I've gone all the way around. Mr. Whitten, anything you wish to add? Ms. Marshall, Ms. Snee, Mr. Pierce. Anyone in the audience have anything they wish to add to this discussion? Seeing none, how do you wish to proceed, Mr.
Move
Rizzo?
forward. Emergency.
Move forward with emergency.
We would ask a unanimous resolution that we move forward to bring this matter before council on next Monday.
Thank you.
And finally, for finance, we have a request to provide a recommendation to council regarding authorizing a release of the mortgage lien on the residential real estate of Deborah Newsome, which was used to secure a 2004 loan for the Pinnacle Banquet and Catering Center LLC. The loan has now been paid off. Consideration of emergency legislation is requested. That's fairly self-explanatory, but I will turn the floor over to Mr. Titterington so that he can elaborate on that.
Just a little elaboration without getting into too much of the details. You don't see these anymore because we build those in up front as part of the legislation when you approve the loans. But prior to the last 5 or 6 years, this was separate action. That's why it's coming to you for a formal release of the mortgage. It has been paid in full. It was an overdue loan, but it did come and get paid. We are asking for emergency legislation so they can close on some other financing that they're doing that is unrelated to us. But this release is necessary for the bank and the title company to finish that work.
Mr. Rizzo, any questions?
It's a matter of obligation. Move forward.
Mr. Phillips, any
No, sir.
questions? Anyone in council, I'll do it without specificity on one as simple as this, have anything they wish to bring before us? Anyone in the audience have any objection to releasing a loan that's been paid? Seeing none, well, I guess I should ask, Mr. Rizzo, move forward. Mr. Phillips, move forward. We would ask that we go forward and release this lien.
All right, thank you.
That should conclude the Finance Committee report, and I think we have one more.
That's your stuff for the other day.
Oh,